Hello, I'm Chuck Phillip with South Alabama Home Inspections. Welcome to another edition of this abandoned house. And so I'm standing in front of one of them. It's probably been abandoned for about 20 years or more. And you can kind of sort of date these houses too. In this case, it's got a lot of azaleas planted all around. And that was something many people did back in the 60s and 70s. I had them in front of my house, which was built in '64. And I like to pull the bumper off my truck trying to get them out. They really do have one heck of a root system. And so, like I've always said, the worst thing you can do to your home yourself is to plant vegetation real close to it, like you see here. Because even small root systems have the potential of damaging your foundation. But not only that, it just holds moisture back to the wall cavity. So, you can see they've got these crank out windows here at the front. It's like they built concrete ledges too. It's also got some negative grading here coming from the front to the back, or the front side of the home. And so it even looks like that water has been pooling, right here at the front area. And it looks like they pulled the meter. And this is a Luan door that's really not made for exterior use, but they sold them as such. But that one has held up fairly well. But that may not be Luan either. It may be solid. That's a mosquito hawk. See if I can stick the camera on. It looks like someone broke the window. I won't be able to see this until I get it back on my computer. I can smell the mold coming through this window. It's actually a pretty day. It's probably 65 degrees. It's got a hip roof system, which many of these ranch style homes had back in the 60s and 70s. And it's actually a really good roof system for wind resistance. Just your typical ranch style home. There wasn't that many builders in this area back then, and so it's common to find a lot of these houses that are the same. And there is what's considered jalousie windows, at least that's what I call them. They were real common back in the 50s and 60s. And I remember there was a girl that lived up the street from me. Her and her grandmother both passed away in a house fire because the height of the window was really high, and plus it had these jalousie windows, and they could not get out of the home. So anytime I find that condition in the house, I'll mark that up as a safety defect. And you can see all this debris that's been put here right next to the foundation too. So even if you just lean plywood or anything like that against the house, it can create problems. So if you have that situation, just remove it. I mean, it got a little ridiculous in this case. This used to be the garage back here. It looks like the roof has completely fell in. That block wall, I kind of sort of suspect that could have been made by Clay City Brick in Fairhope. They were a pretty big brick company back in the day. So this is what it's looking like on the back side of this. You can see it's got a big hole in the roof there. It's got the good old wind turbine. And if you have these on your home, I recommend you put a plastic bag over them if a hurricane comes, because they'll blow off the roof. But you need to take it off after the storm passes so you can get ventilation back to your roof system. That's an early style dormer vent, which probably has a screen that's rotted out. I'm pretty sure there's probably some rodents living in this attic space, and probably the house itself. And it does have a little bit of negative grading here to the back. Looks like that's why they put that block of wood there to keep water from just pouring into the back door. Let's take a little peek. It's got sandbags here too. Let's see what it looks like in there. Looks like this is just used for storage. You know, what a shame. I have a feeling that this house would have just been kept up to some degree. You know, this thing could have been, you know, pretty salvageable. And it still could be, because this old wood is really resilient to moisture issues. But it still comes a point to where it will eventually start rotting out. And you can start seeing some of that right there. If you have rotted fascia board, that needs to be taken care of. It's more than a cosmetic issue, because what will happen is moisture will wick back to drier parts of the wood structure, and you can see where it's rotted the 2x4s there. It's even got into the rafter tails, and it'll just soak all the way back into the attic space too. And so if you have moist conditions in the attic, it can also make it conducive to Formosan termites. They don't really even have to have ground contact if there's enough moisture in the attic space. And I have found some aerial colonies during the course of my inspections. So this house could have active termites in it. Just know this, guys, these termites get worse every year, not better. And I would not depend on bait stations alone to protect my home. I've got some pretty good episodes on this channel about how I go about doing my own pest and termite control. And it looks like it has a crawl space. It didn't appear like that on the front side of the home, but that could be just a raceway where they ran some of their utilities maybe. You can tell that door right there's had it. That's definitely a Luan door that's just come to pieces. They don't fare too well even in damp homes on the inside. So that's a little trail going right there. More than likely there's possums or some other type of rodents that are living around here. Looks like that's a service drop here on the back side of the right side, back right. All right, guys, well, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and conclude this. I just figured I'd put a little video up of what these houses look like after they've been abandoned for some time, and this is what your home can look like as well if you don't maintain it. I mean, no matter if you have a new house or an older home, you have to maintain them in order to keep them from getting to a condition point to where it can cost, you know, tens of thousands of dollars to get it back. Thanks for taking the time to watch this, guys. I'm sure I'll probably have another one as I come across these. I find these kind of interesting. Take care.